Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It is 1 minute past 12, which means that it's time for another SLL webinar. Welcome to today's webinar, brought to you by the good people at the Society of Light and Lighting and CIBSE. My name is Guy Kornetsky. I'm a member of the SLL event committee, and I will host the event today. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to put forward a few housekeeping notes. As always, if you experience any technical difficulties with hearing or seeing the webinar, first of all, try and open your eyes. It's a good start. Otherwise, we recommend leaving the session and logging back in, turning it on and off again, the equivalent. Can you not hear me? You can't hear me? Oh. That's a good point. Let me see.
Great, somebody can hear you. Betty,
Yeah?
I think you maybe need to just reset your microphone or headphones or whatever it is. But
Yes.
It looks like people can hear us. So thank you, everybody, for replying. Back to you, Guy.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Brendan. As I just said, if you are experiencing difficulties, reset. But of course, like Betty, if you're not hearing me, then you won't know. After the presentation, we'll have an interactive discussion with our speaker. I encourage you to post questions in the chat throughout. I will then filter the questions and put them to the speaker at the end. And of course, we'll get through as many questions as we can. As you probably noticed, we are recording the session and a link will be available shortly after we finish. And finally, if you want any more information about the Society of Light and Lighting, please visit the website www.sll.org.uk or email sll@cibse.org. So with the housekeeping out the way, I'd like to start, as always, with a little story. When I was a lighting rookie a few years ago, my knowledge was based almost entirely on experience. At the time, I was working in performance lighting, and when I was asked to rig some lights there or focus lights or use that color, I saw the result, and when the opportune moment came, I applied the same principles to achieve similar results. It means that I witnessed those results and I knew they had worked. Or I saw that they didn't work, and so I was able to modify and do things differently. What I really didn't like was some lighting designers doing things as a force of habit. You know, we've done it before, we've always done it. That's what we do. That's how we do light for night, for example. Why? Why do we do it like that? What does it do? Why does it work? Evidence-based design is the definitive counterpoint to, I don't know, we've just always done it that way. It's a methodological process that analyzes environments and based on research, delivers considered designs. Our speaker today, Dr. Navaz Davoudian, has been at the forefront of evidence-based lighting design for several decades. She's an honorary senior research associate at UCL's Bartlett School of Environment, Energy and Resources, and has been a teaching fellow for the MSc Light and Lighting since 2014. Before joining UCL, she completed a PhD in urban lighting at the School of Architecture, University of Sheffield, and she also obtained a Master in Architecture in 2001. I actually met Navaz and saw her give a talk a few years ago at a lighting industry event. And we kept in touch, hoping to be able to collaborate around some of our many research interests. And I'm delighted that we finally have such an opportunity to work together. Nawaz is actually abroad, and to avoid internet connection challenges, she kindly pre-recorded her webinar for us. So we will play it back shortly with kind assistance from Brendan, the SLL secretary. After the webinar recording is ended, Nawaz and I will have a live chat about some of the key takeaways. And so again, I encourage you to put forward any questions you might have in the chat as we go. So first of all, thank you and welcome to Nawaz.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and take some good information from the presentation.
Thank you very much, and we'll talk more later. Brendan, when you're ready, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy that I'm here to talk to you about evidence-based lighting design for people in smart cities. As you know, we are having smart cities are becoming a common topic in many areas, and it is essential to consider the impact of lighting and in general smart city technologies on people's well-being and safety and comfort. Spoiler alert, today I'm not going to tell you how to do the design, the lighting design, but instead we are going through a journey about the common knowledge of smart cities, about smart cities, and how differently we can look at it, how what human-centric smart cities can look like, and at the end we are going to talk what role lighting can play in this approach. It's going to be quite a long introduction. Please bear with me. Since I'm going to talk about evidence-based lighting design in smart cities, let's to have a quick definition of evidence-based practice and design in general, and what it is and how it can help us in our design. I am privileged to be the author and editor of this award-nominated book, Urban Lighting for People, Evidence-Based Lighting Design for the Built Environment. The book is written by a group of experts in this area and starts with a comprehensive introduction on evidence-based practice and design. So if you like to know a bit more about evidence-based practice, you can have a look at this book. The book is also available in simplified Chinese. Okay, evidence-based lighting design. Before going into lighting design, let's look at what evidence-based design means and what evidence-based practice actually means. Okay, evidence-based design is a process for the judicious and conscientious use of current best evidence from research and practice when making decisions about the design of an individual project. That's the definition. And judicious and conscientious are two important words in this definition that I'm going to explain a bit further later in the presentation. It's basically a research-based approach designers use to understand how people interact with the built environment and how the built environment influences the behavior. Evidence-based design emerged in the health sector in the 1980s when the designer made use of a credible body of research linking design to improve patient safety and faster healing. For example, single hospital rooms are consistently proven to reduce infection compared to wards. When applied to lighting, The evidence-based approach found that lighting does indeed affect human health and well-being. Studies exist about the psychological effects of lighting, carpeting, and noise on critical care patients, and evidence links a well-designed physical environment with improvement in patients and staff safety, wellness, and satisfaction. While evidence-based design process has started with healthcare, it is useful in other fields of design. Evidence-based design does not consist of ready-made answers to complex problems. Instead, it's a process whereby the designer and client find the answers themselves. It is the integration of practical design expertise, the client, project, user requirements and preferences, and the best research evidence in the design decision-making process. Evidence-based design basically can't happen unless all the integral components are available and are taken into account. Now, what is evidence? What do we mean when we say evidence? The Oxford English Dictionary gives a number of definitions for the word evidence. But a unifying theme in all definitions of evidence is that it needs to be independently observed and verified. This highlights the importance of ensuring that the evidence used to inform practice and policy has been subject to scrutiny. So basically, we can't call any anecdote an evidence unless it is independently scrutinized and examined. It should be independently observed, scrutinized, and verified by the expert in that area. Otherwise, we can't call them evidence. But where these evidence come from, where we can find reliable evidence? Basically, we have two forms of evidence, two categories: propositional or codified, or non-propositional and personal. In reality, the relationship between the two sources of knowledge is dynamic. However, propositional knowledge has gained higher prominence. It is formal and derived from research and scholarship and is mainly focused on generalizability. Non-propositional knowledge, on the other hand, is informal and comes primarily from practice. It forms part of personal knowledge linked to the life experience and cognitive resources that a person brings to the situation to enable them to think and perform. In order to practice evidence-based design, practitioners need to employ and integrate multiple sources of both types of knowledge, informed by a variety of evidence bases that have been critically scrutinized. Furthermore, these processes are context related within a complex, multifaceted design environment. Okay, after that introduction, let's talk about smart cities. Okay, let's talk about the smart city research. How much researchers know about the smart cities? Basically, the analysis of 191 publications drawn from high-quality journals and the most influential or highly cited smart city literature highlights 4 major challenges for smart city research. It is often fragmented and technology-driven. Many of these studies are on the perceived benefits of smart cities and fewer on. Now, what is the common knowledge about the smart cities? And actually, what is a smart city? By definition, a smart city is a city that uses technology and data to improve the quality of life for its residents and enhance sustainability and optimize urban services. It leverages various digital and information technologies to efficiently manage resources, infrastructure, and services. Smart cities integrate Internet of Things devices, sensors, and data analytics to collect and analyze vast amounts of information from different sources such as transportation systems, energy grids, public services, and citizens themselves. This data is then used to make informed decisions and improve the city's operation and services. In a paper by Bonova et al. 2022, it classifies smart cities into three main categories: technical, organizational, and social. From the technical perspective, a smart city is defined as a complexity of integrated technology aiming to increase the overall effectiveness of city administration. And that means to improve service quality, facilitate citizen interactions and engagement, and mitigate environmental impacts through technology. From organizational perspective, smart cities are a multi- and transdisciplinary research and application field which can improve connections and interactions between organizations, services, people, resources, and processes. And from the social perspective, Smart City represents a unique innovation platform for companies, government agencies, and researchers. In this sense, Smart City projects aim to improve citizens' engagement in urban life management, affecting their quality of life and well-being, and boosting urban services accessibility, social equity, and security. Here, I'd like you to remember the boards of quality of life and social equity. We are going to talk about them a bit more later on in this presentation. Okay, how do smart cities benefit their citizens? Through different ways, for example, by improving urban mobility. Smart cities utilize intelligent transportation system and real-time data to optimize traffic flow, reduce congestion, and enhance public transportation systems. Commuters benefit from improved accessibility, reduced travel times, and lower carbon emissions. Integrated transportation options and smart parking systems further enhance convenience and reduce congestion. Another way is through sustainable resource management. Resource energy grids, waste management systems, conservation strategies. Smart grids and energy management technologies optimize energy consumption, promote renewable energy resources, and reduce environmental impact. Efficient waste management system minimize waste production and enable recycling and reuse, contributing to a cleaner, more sustainable urban environment. It can help us to enhance safety and security. Smart cities employ advanced surveillance systems, IoT devices, and data analytics to enhance public safety. Intelligent video monitoring, facial recognition, and predictive analytics help prevent and respond to criminal activities. Emergency response systems utilize real data to improve disaster management and reduce response times. Another way is through citizen engagement and participation. Smart cities leverage technology to foster citizen engagement and participatory governance. Online platforms, mobile applications, and social media enables residents to actively participate in decision-making and provide feedback. It helps to improve quality of life. Smart cities aim to enhance the overall quality of life for residents by providing efficient services, seamless connectivity, and sustainable living environments. Access to real-time information, a smart healthcare system, and personalized services contribute to improved well-being. Smart home equipment with IoT devices and automation technologies offer convenience, energy savings, and enhanced comfort. Limitation and concerns around smart cities. The implementation of smart city initiatives raises concerns about various issues, including privacy and security, interoperability, sustainability, equity, lack of citizen-centered approach. For example, about privacy and security, smart cities should establish robust policies and procedures to safeguard personal information and protect against cyber threats. Regarding interoperability, they need to create compatible systems and services to maximize the benefits of smart cities technology. About sustainability, they need to prioritize sustainable development and consider the environmental impact of technology and infrastructure decisions. I'm going to talk about equity and lack of citizen-centered approach in oncoming slides. Okay, about equity, there are several issues around the equity in smart cities. For example, smart cities should bridge the digital divide to ensure equal access and opportunities for all residents. Also, the use of algorithms in smart city systems can lead to discriminatory outcomes for marginalized communities. Greenfield, in his paper called Against a Smart City, highlights that these algorithms may be trained on biased data sets, perpetuating and exacerbating inequalities. For instance, if a smart city system is designed to optimize traffic flow, it may prioritize the needs of affluent neighborhoods over poor ones. The data used to train the algorithm may be biased towards affluent areas, leading to longer wait times for public transportation or increased traffic in poorer neighborhoods. This can have negative consequences on the lives of people living in these communities, particularly those rely on public transportation to get to work or school. Moreover, Greenfield argues that the use of algorithms in smart city systems may lead to a form of algorithmic governance that excludes people who do not fit in a predetermined categories. For example, if a smart city system is designed to allocate resources based on a person's credit score or social media activity, it may exclude individuals who are underbanked or do not use social media. This can further marginalize these communities and perpetuate existing social and economic inequalities. Okay, now people-centric smart cities. We learned that one of the limitations of current smart cities system is lack of people-centric approach. Now we are looking into what this people-centric approach can look like. Smart city development has shifted from a technology-centric approach driven by economic interest to a citizen-centric approach. The citizen centricity, a sociocultural approach, highlights the use of digitalized resources to improve people's well-being. Compared to a technology-centric approach, citizen centricity emphasizes citizens' needs and interests as central to smart governance. This approach has been widely used in public policy and e-governance. From playing a passive role as a censor or consumers, citizens have now become co-creators of their living environments. They are the main users and service targets in the smart city community. And thus, they comprise the most important internal factors of smart city development. So now, instead of having a top-down approach, they started to having a bottom-up approach. It starts from the consumers and clients, basically, and going from there up. People-centric smart city development should be collaborative between different stakeholders and, most importantly, the end users. It should focus on users' needs and supportive of innovations to find solutions for the problems, for the actual problems in the field. It also should orient towards the development of well-being and creation of public value. However, so far, they have only explored the importance of citizen participation as an internal factor in smart city development. Therefore, they remained at the conceptual development stage, which solely represents citizens' perspective, or the planning stage of smart city development. Studies on citizens' involvement via feedback are mostly focused on measuring citizens' acceptance, engagement, and satisfaction with specific technology-driven services rather than the smart city development. So the relationship between smart city development and quality of life from citizen perspective has not been explored yet. Moreover, human experience should not be the side effect of the smart city intervention. Although one of the key goals of smart city developments is to enhance citizens' economical, social, cultural, educational, and recreational quality of life, its impact at the micro level, and by that I mean individual citizens' lives, has not been fully explored. This is very important, the impact of smart cities on individual citizens' lives and how they perceive. It impacts how they perceive actually smart cities through their eyes. I have been talking about smart cities and quality of life quite a lot today, but what is quality of life actually? You can see the WHO definition of quality of life on this slide. And we have two indices basically for quality of life, the objective one and the subjective one. The objective factors are things such as income, education, healthcare, life expectancy, public security, employment, transportation, and residence quality. And the subjective factors include physical health, psychological state, level of independence and social relationships, standard of living, achievements, safety, and security. When smart cities talk about improving quality of life, they mainly focus on the objective factors, and the subjective factors has been rarely included in their work. By now you may have thought that people-centric smart cities and looking at quality of life, people's quality of life, from objective factors to subjective factors, they are somehow sound like a luxury that we cannot afford, and it's basically adding extra pressure on pressure and expenses to public money. But actually, it is not. It's not a luxury. It's not philanthropy, and it's not about necessarily adding expenses to public money. Because actually, smart cities, even from the technology-driven approach, requires citizens' involvement, cooperations. They need citizens to work properly. They need citizens to give up their data, some of their privacy, and they need people to give feedback, and so on. And unless people can see the impact of these smart city initiatives in their daily lives on micro level, on individual level, they probably wouldn't do that. For example, imagine, I don't know if you know the satellite navigation app called Waze. If you need to use Waze, at the beginning, it asks you to give up some data, some of your data and privacy, basically, to be able to use the app, because you can see the immediate effect of using that app in your life, especially if you live in London. You happily give up all the data and privacy and everything because you want to get to your destination as quick as possible. But if someone comes and tells you, okay, give up your data or some privacy, some of your privacy for, and we will improve the air quality of our cities and reduce the pollution. Not everybody would do that necessarily. Many people would say, okay, let's our neighbors do that. We are not going to do that. So for us, for smart city developers, to make sure that it actually works perfectly, they need to give some incentives to end users to basically be cooperative and work with them. So that's where the basically new businesses and new innovations come into place, to find basically what are the services that people are happy to give up their privacy, give up their data, to use them, and can be connected into smart city in smart city development and be included in that. This is actually a point that I like you to think about. That. What sort of services people are happy to collaborate with them, basically to give up data and privacy to use those services. Waze is one of the examples. Can you think of any other examples, any other thing existing or non-existing? So far we came to this point that smart cities, to be successful, they need to take into account the needs of individual citizens in macro level. There are different approaches that can be taken based on that point of view. That's now I'm going to talk about one possible approach. The title of this slide is Adaptable Responsive Environment. I'm sure you have heard about urban adaptation, but it's a different concept from that. Urban adaptation refers to the process of adapting cities and urban areas to climate change, both in preventative and protective terms. But when we are talking about urban adaptive systems, we are talking about systems that can adapt and respond to changing urban environment and condition. I'm going to tell you a bit more about it in the coming slides. What is responsive adaptive environment? This approach is basically based on a study done by Harvard University and University of Bergamo. Adaptive environment refer to urban spaces that can change and adapt based on the needs of the people using them and the context in which they exist. This can include the use of sensors and automation technologies to monitor and respond to changes in traffic flow, weather conditions, or other environmental factors. By adapting these changes, adaptive urban environment can improve safety, accessibility, and overall usability for people. The concepts typically employ a creative use of technology for the design of responsive and interactive urban spaces, artifacts, or systems centered around the citizen experience. Different approach can be taken to achieve adaptive street environment. One of them is a morphological transformation. The urban concept specifically defines morphological transformations of mobility spaces enabled by smart sensors and responsive materials for adaptive transport options. Three scenarios are envisioned in relation to different time horizons and anticipated technological solutions. The first scenario describes dynamic adjustments of traffic lanes with respect to vehicle flows or increasing presence of bikers and pedestrians. The second scenario proposes real-time changes of transport configurations through contextual awareness technologies that respond to immediate user needs, with the street itself mediating between vehicles and pedestrians. Third scenario, finally, shows the reconfiguration of public spaces from mobility purposes to community-driven appropriation for events or special needs. Now let's watch a short video to see how it works.
We're just going to switch screens and play the video. Please bear with us. Just going to go back to Navaz's pre-recorded presentation. Please bear with us.
Now let's watch a short video to see how it works. Another approach to adaptive environment is through responsive urban safety. They explore the topic of urban safety and surveillance by addressing safety from the standpoint of the subjective experience. The proposed concept particularly focuses on the role of urban lighting in the prevention of crime and assaults and in the perception of personal safety in the public spaces. This proposal complements the role of urban lighting with a responsive and yet not intrusive system of surveillance through the deployment of autonomous flying companions. Resting on light posts during daytime, these small drones self-activate at night when suspected behavior is sensed or a lighting companion is needed by frightened citizens. Let's watch a short film about this proposal. However, while responding directly to the perceived safety of citizens is a valid argument, the implementation of this idea can be varied. Here they try to be very out-of-the-box thinker, but we can make it even better. Okay, let's watch a short film about this proposal. However, while responding directly to the perceived safety of citizens is a valid argument, the implementation of this idea can be varied. Here they try to be very out-of-the-box thinker, but we can make it even better. So far, we talked about the importance of human-centric smart city, and also what can be achieved through smart cities, and we introduced adaptive and responsive environments. Now we are going to think about how these adaptive and responsive environments can help people in a micro level, an individual level. One of the ways that looking at it is urban accessibility that I'm going to talk about today, and for people with visual diversity and how it can help them in urban accessibility after dark, basically. But what is visual diversity? Basically, people with visual diversity perceive environment differently from other people. It is due to impairment, visual impairment, aging, neurodiversity, and etc. Gibson in 1977 introduced the concept of environmental affordance as what the environment offers an individual to be able to complete different actions, including spatial navigation. Component of spatial navigability and perception of the public spaces after dark. Current street lighting is mainly built on studies based on young adults' experience of outdoor spaces and rarely included pedestrian visual diversity in the design of street lighting. The main population in visually diverse pedestrians are older adults. As you may know, we are facing a demographic change in our society. By the year 2037, 33% of the population will be over 60 years old. The nighttime economy is a key driver of town centers' economic and cultural regeneration. Recent research showed that just in London, the nighttime economy contributes 26.3 billion to annual GDP and supports 1 in 8 jobs. This figure is expected to rise to 28.3 billion by 2029. This could raise the importance of nighttime studies and the contribution of urban built environment on the enhancement of nighttime economy and nightlife that is inclusive and accessible to all citizens. So it is important to include our older people in our nighttime environment, especially that they are on the whole becoming wealthier and have greater resources than younger generations. Over 50s in the UK hold approximately 68% of all UK household wealth. Also, British workers increasingly likely to work into their 70s. And something around 1 million people in their 50s and over work at night. Inactivity and social isolation is a serious issue between older adults and creates all sorts of physical and mental problems. Therefore, reducing barriers in accessibility to outdoor spaces is a must. There has been many studies that explore the accessibility of urban spaces to older adults, but these studies have focused mainly on the daytime environment, and the lighting level has been mentioned only as a factor of hazard detection and fear of crime. There is a change of walking behavior at night between older adults. 7 out of 11 older pedestrians, something around 63%, change their route or means of transportation at night, and this number is 41% for younger pedestrians. In total, it's 21% of the residents opt to use their personal car at night for the destination that they usually walk during the daytime. In a study that investigated the impact of lighting in urban centers, a large number of people were interviewed about their use of streets at night. It showed that 54% of over 65 did not use outdoor spaces at night, and it was only 20% for younger groups. Meta-analysis of their results showed that the fear of falling is a major concern for older groups and significantly higher than other age groups. It is interesting to know that in other categories, older people had similar or lower concerns compared to younger participants. Based on a WHO global report, falls are a major threat to the health and well-being of older people. Approximately half of falls among adults aged 60 and above occur in outdoor environments. The number of falls at night is much lower among older adults and accounts for only 20% of the total numbers. At the same time, older people's anxiety of falling in outdoor spaces is much higher at night, and it prevents older people from getting outdoor, and it is largely explained the lower number of falls at night. Okay, by now we can see the importance of urban lighting specifically designed for older people. However, research funds in this area has been very limited, partially because research into lighting design for this group of people probably results in suggestions such as increase in the amount of light in the streets and its economical and environmental consequences. However, smart cities and smart technologies could be a way of minimizing this environmental and economical costs and improve quality of life for 33% of the population. 15% of the UK population are diagnosed with neurodiversity, and I wish we had more information and studies about how they experience nighttime in the cities and how lighting can make it a bit easier for them. Autistic people experience a range of visual hypersensitivities, including light, that can have significant negative impact on personal well-being and daily life with individuals describing fatigue and stress on day-to-day activities. For instance, in case of using outdoor spaces, they found it difficult to use public transport due to the artificial lighting at night. While studies about neurodiversity and lighting are very limited, it has been mentioned in some standards and guidelines. For example, in a technical note on the subject, they mentioned when employing LED lighting, caution needs to be taken where aspects related to the sensorial stimulation and visual comfort of all users. The particular attention should be paid to people who are hypersensitive to light, as well as aging-related susceptibility to glare and other eye conditions. At the moment, we don't have enough evidence to tell us how urban lighting would look like for older people, the best urban lighting for older people or for neurodiverse people. But imagine if we do have all those evidence of how to design, basically, how generally to design for older people in streets and for neurodiverse people, and what is the best solution and how the streets should look like. I'd like you to think about how adaptable environment, how responsive environment and smart cities can help us to implement those information that we have, implement those evidence into design within reason. Because having evidence is one thing, making it into a good design is another thing, and this is the tool that is in the hand of designers and practitioners rather than researchers. Okay, that's it from my side. and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you very much. And special thank you to Brendan, our wizard behind the scenes, for running the controls for us. Thank you very much, Navaz. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of different factors to consider. What would be your kind of key takeaway that you'd like people to either take and think about, or things that data that is perhaps less known?
Sorry, it's a bit broken. You're talking to me. You're asking me about what is the...
Yes, Navaz. What there's a lot to take in. What would be your kind of key point?
Well, when I was thinking about this talk today, I was looking for something thought-provoking, basically, something to make people to think differently. I said what we can do, how the future can look like. And I brought my thoughts and some of my suggestions into it. And I hope people just take it from there and come with some solutions and some ideas of themselves.
Yes, and I think one of the points you mentioned in the webinar is that there is still some research that is needed in various parts, and I'm sure that by raising these questions, that's where that will come, hopefully. So I'll just bring up a few questions that were put in during the chat. Is there a particular platform where data is collected from citizens and cities? Who collects the data? What are the management systems that are put in place to use this data?
Good question. It's actually one of the hottest topics when it comes to smart city. Who can collect data, how, and where is the data is going to be stored, how they can be used, and all the ethical problems that that may arise. So there are lots of discussions in this area, and nothing concrete has come up. Anyway, smart city is in its infancy, so we are at the beginning of the way. Many holes in the whole concept still remains that needs to be filled.
Which is, of course, great opportunities to be picked up and innovate around. There was another common thread that came through some of the questions around inclusivity and around equality. For example, there was a question earlier around whether smart cities as a whole will open larger technological gaps between cities that are smart versus cities that are not smart.
That can be correct. To be honest, let me say this: I'm not a particularly smart city expert here. I'm a lighting researcher, and as a researcher, I need to know what is going on around that can affect the design of lighting for people. That's why I did my search in smart cities, and I read about it. But these are the things that can happen, and there should be a way that we minimize these gaps between, anyway, affluent society that they can afford smart cities, and a poorer society that they cannot afford. The difference between poor and affluent is always there in the world and not always can be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. There was another point made about more research required, which I think is a common theme. If we can step back for 1 second, looking at your opening about evidence-based design, you mentioned the 3 key components being practical, client requirements or preference, and evidence. And it feels like evidence is the weakest link, the one that we are missing the most. Would you agree?
You mean in the form of design that designer use that? Yes, basically because evidence usually comes as a form of journal papers to public mainly, and they are not accessible to everybody unless you pay for them. Some of them are more accessible, but many of them you have to pay for them, and the amount of research jargon into those papers may, put people off, and they don't want to go through it. But I hope that seminars like this and some other seminars and information exchange possibilities arises more, so they can academics and researchers, they can talk to designers and exchange the information in a more accessible way.
I agree, and I think there is a certain chasm, a certain gap between research and professional practice that has been discussed in various occasions before, and also it brings back the idea of where does this knowledge base lives, and who gets access to it, etc. I was also interested. You talked a lot about, particularly with smart cities, how there seems to be a shift from a shift in approach from no longer the technology being top down, but more focused on people. And that also links to your title, that this is lighting for people in smart cities.
Yeah.
What how do you see this shift going? Where does that sort of technology need to go for it to really be about people?
First of all, we need more collaboration and with people, and more communications on design level, and more research into what actually people want, what actually people need. And this research shouldn't be involved just from, it shouldn't be just lighting designer or lighting researchers involved. There should be, social scientists, neurological scientists, and, other different stakeholders should be involved in this research and study to find out what is it actually makes people life better, what they actually, every community actually is looking at, and what would be useful for them. And co-design after that, to co-design the new services with people in the field, in where they live. And this is the only way to have a people-centric smart cities and lighting eventually.
Yes, I completely agree, and I think there is a shift recently to a more collaborative approach. I think it feels like, certainly as a practitioner, it feels like it's the right thing to do, but on a practical level, sometimes it's difficult to make that happen,
Yes.
because as with research, that takes time, and time has a cost to it.
Yes, that's true. I agree.
So if we do look to have more research, Speaking of research, what kind of research are you working on at the moment?
Well, actually, what I'm working on is basically on people with visual diversity, and what exactly urban lighting, the optimum urban lighting could look like for them, regardless of all sorts of limitations that we have right now in an ideal world, and hopefully in the future to see how it can be implemented in smart cities, and what would be the way of the implementation more. This another research project for itself. But first we need to know what is the idea, what is the optimum in this area.
Yes, and I think, as you mentioned earlier in your presentation, there is a certain perception that the older population just needs more light, and how that impacts, of course, cost and assets for a city, but that, as with many cases, requires a more nuanced approach. It's not just about get more light.
Yeah, exactly. And even if that would be the case, maybe a smart city can provide solutions to that. That's, for example, we don't have to increase the whole city's light amount, and it can be focused on certain area. And there are different, smart technologies can open different ways of looking at things. So that's one of the things I like to people think about it, to see that there is a potential for whatever you think is right, and we just need to find the design solution for that that can be included in smart city development.
It feels like there is a it feels like there is a I was just reading a message about needing more uniform light from some of our more distinguished population. Speaking of research and technology.
Sorry, I missed you a little bit.
That's okay. I was just reading a message about relating to light levels. It feels like research and smart technology and technologies, smart cities have a direct connection with suppliers, manufacturers. What kind of role do you see the manufacturing industry playing in this? Are you still there, Navaz? Maybe we've. Oh, you're back.
You asked me what role manufacturers can play.
Yes, very much like Batman relies on all his amazing technology, as opposed to Superman, who is just super. What kind of relationship do you see the manufacturing industry playing in this?
But actually, manufacturers are in the middle of this, the whole smart city development, because the design of the luminaires and lamps, is basically in their hands, and how it can be connected into smart city technologies. So they are basically maybe they are in the front line in many ways. And their involvement is very important.
In your research, do you find that manufacturers are responsive, are willing to engage with your research?
Yes, but my research is a bit, you know, future thinking, futuristic somehow, because we are not still in that point that it can be immediately, the result of my research can be immediately applied into streets, at least not next year or the year after. I don't know, in 5 years, 10 years time. So they will be involved. They are, I'm sure they will be interested in that, but I think their target is usually, they have a short-term targets and the longer-term targets. I'm sure that it will be in their longer-term targets of their design and productions.
Yes, speaking to various manufacturers along the way, there seems to be, yes, a certain shift. If we think it, or is something, there's a need that we as specifiers or designers call for, then usually the manufacturing community rises to the challenge and hopefully gives us the tools, the technology, and the tools that we need. Okay, I think our Navaza's internet connection is maybe signaling that it might be time to wrap up. Okay, so unless there are any other questions from anyone, let's wrap up. I appreciate that we've gone past the hour, so thank you very much for anyone who's wanted to stick with us. Thank you everyone for your time. Navaz, if you can hear me, thank you for your time and for the Society of Light and Lighting, and wishing you all a very good day and see you soon. Bye-bye.